2022 out here, man.
Pre-roll.
No trash. I'm just kidding. Alright. We're talking about expected numbers, right? Yeah. Y'all remember all this from, what was it, Thursday? Been a while?
Like Wednesday.
Wednesday, Thursday. So, everybody in here is going to charge air conditioners, right? You're going to be able to top off a unit that's low and everything. Everybody? Hopefully, you should. So, this is stuff burning your head. I can't stress it enough. Whatever's got to do to make it make sense to you, like burn this in your head. So as soon as you hook up, you know, is my head pressure okay? Is my suction pressure okay? Right? These two, is my head pressure okay? Is my suction pressure okay? How much liquid is in my evaporator? Is superheat? How much liquid is in my condenser? That's the name of the game. Where's the refrigerant at? Where's the refrigerant at? So if you have a flooded condenser, let's talk about this, let me throw this one at you real quick. Flooded condenser, starved evaporator. So let's say you had really high subcooling and really high superheat. If you have high subcooling, what shape is your condenser in? Normal, starved, or flooded? High subcooling is flooded because subcooling is heat removed from a liquid. So if you have high subcooling, you have lots of liquid. But superheat is reverse acting, it's backwards. Superheat is heat added to a vapor. So if you have high superheat, you have low liquid, starved evaporator. Make sense? I'm going to throw one more up here. Linux. Anyone, a lot of you guys did some Linux work, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I did.
Who said that? Oh yeah, Airco, big time, huh? Big Linux dealer, huge. Have y'all, Linux loves to use the approach method on their air-to-air stuff.
Never used that.
You didn't, but you've seen it on all the charging charts, right?
I saw it, but we never used it.
So on the older Linux stuff, if you go back to the 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, like everything was approach. And then it wasn't until recently they started doing both. Like here's the approach, here's the subcooling. So approach on air-to-air, on DX stuff, direct exchange, air-cooled stuff. Approach is for TXV units. So it's kind of like subcooling. Anyone happen to know the formula for this?
Liquid line temp minus outdoor air view.
Yep. You've used approach, huh?
Not necessarily. Just know
You're just a smart cat.
Yeah.
Approach equals liquid line temp minus outdoor air equals approach, yeah.
You can
I can do better than that, I'm sorry.
Is that how you do it?
It's gotta be like 10 dots.
Liquid line temp minus outdoor air. So it's kind of a combination between subcooling and condenser TD. It's kind of, in my head, it's like they took a piece of condenser TD, they took a piece of subcooling formula, and mixed them together. That's the way it makes sense to me, or whatever. So let's talk about this real quick. You're working on a Linux, and we're going to talk about water-cooled stuff too, but let's talk about air-cooled stuff. Let's say that you have a required approach. Merchberger, what's a normal approach that you've seen since you know this formula so well?
10.
Yeah? Alright, let's go with it. Let's say it's requiring 10 degrees plus or minus 1 degree. So we got to be between 9 and 11. Let's say the outdoor air temperature is 90 degrees and my liquid line temperature, this is just an example. My liquid line temperature is 110, boys. Ooh. do some math, show off some math skills real quick. What's my approach? 20. Alright, no one shout this out, especially you. But think about this for a second. You got 20-degree approach, and you need 10. What you gonna do? Think about it. Are you gonna start adding gas? Are you gonna start pulling gas out?
Just making it hotter outside.
Right? So, we're heating air, guys, so we can change this. But we're not Mother Nature, we're not the gods, we can't change this, right? We can't change the outdoor ambient air temperature, necessarily. But we can change the liquid line temperature. We gotta lower the liquid line temperature, agreed? So, show of hands, does everyone know what they're thinking, what they're gonna do?
Yeah.
Alright, it usually goes, alright, let's see how it goes. If you're gonna pull gas out, raise your hand. If you're gonna add gas, raise your hand. Not everyone voted. If you're gonna add gas, raise your hand. If you're gonna pull gas out, raise your hand. Now it's 50-50. That's the way it normally goes. Closer to 50-50. What is it?
Take it out.
Pull gas out.
Take it out.
Chest says pull, I say
Definitely Chest says pull, yep.
TXV.
It's got a TXV on it. So now think about it.
Would you have to?
Yeah, there's too much liquid.
You could just adjust the TXV, could back that up to the liquid.
You
But you
can
got
non-adjustable
non-adjustable
TXVs.
So you're pulling gas out.
Pull gas out. Pull that gas. Pull it. Pull all gas out.
I love this.
You gotta give it gas.
I'm writing those three.
I don't know if it's adjustable.
I didn't know.
Well, now how are we gonna?
Oh, yeah, I was right.
I do it, should we trust my gut?
Mark it in my book today. Yep. Hey, alright. Why would adding refrigerant lower the liquid line temperature?
More refrigerant.
It increases subcooling. So,
That sounds good.
check it out. You start adding gas. TXV, how's the TXV going to respond when you add refrigerant? Is it gonna open or close? You adding more refrigerant to it, what's its reaction gonna be?
Open up.
Bullshit. It's gonna close off. You're adding more, you're flooding it more. It's gonna see the superheat start dropping, right? It's gonna start pinching off. Agreed?
Agreed.
TXV is gonna start shutting off. When the TXV starts shutting off, it's gonna start stacking up in the condenser. Agreed? If it spends more time in the condenser, what's it gonna do to our leaving liquid line temperature?
Lower.
It spends more time in the condenser, so we can put more of this heat into this. So we can get, the longer it stays in the condenser, the closer we can get it to ambient air, right? So in a perfect world, if it's 90 degrees outside, in a perfect world, I'd love to be able to get my liquid line all the way down to 90. Use 90-degree ambient air, blow it across the condenser, drop the refrigerant temperature all the way down to 90, that'd be awesome. But condensers aren't 100% efficient. There's always some loss there, right? I mean, you could stack a huge condenser, you could totally do that. But anyways, long story short, yes, add refrigerant to drop your approach, recover refrigerant to make that approach wider, right? Because if you pull gas out, now TXV is going to start opening, it's going to go through the condenser faster, it's not going to reject as much heat. The longer it stays in the condenser, the closer we can get it to this outdoor air temperature. Good stuff. I love asking that question in class. It's almost always a 50-50 split. And then once you see it, it's like, boom, got it. So superheat, subcooling, condenser TD, evaporator TD. These 4 readings on every single unit you work on, even if you're there doing a PM and it's 2 months old, and they just put it in like March, you're there in May, the thing's been running in air conditioning mode for a total of like 8 hours. Still, man, I can't stress it enough. Take these readings on every single thing you work on and just start storing it in your brain. On an 80-degree morning, With this matchup, it's typical to see this or that on a 100-degree day. And with this matchup, it's typical to see these numbers and just start storing it in your head. The more PMs you can do, I think the better off you are, honestly, especially if you're doing them right and you're taking all your readings and learning from it. If you see what a unit is supposed to do, it'll help you when that unit's broken and you can get it back to where it's supposed to be. You already know where it's supposed to be because you've already seen that 100 times, so it's a lot easier to fix a broken one. I used to cuss doing PMs. I hated doing PMs. I hated it. Hated it. Didn't hate it. It paid the bills, but I did not, it wasn't my favorite thing to do. But you can learn a lot for real. I know it sounds cheesy, but you could totally learn a lot by taking those readings on every single thing you do. What else we got? Y'all remember compression ratio? We can talk about compression ratio for a second.
Add 15 plus 15.
Right. High side plus 15, low side plus 15,
Divide.
and then divide them. Yeah. I don't like, yeah. Compression ratio, the higher the compression ratio, the more heat that's in that compressor. That's one thing you definitely need to know. So with a higher compression ratio, you'll always have more heat in the compressor. Almost always. Compression ratio equals heat. Yeah, we'll get into some liquid injection and stuff. You guys that have done the rate chiller already, you see it's got a liquid injection valve to cool the compressor off because of high compression ratio and a hot gas bypass setup. So the compressor starts getting hot, it starts taking liquid refrigerant and blasting it, metering it, and blast it on the motor to cool the motor off. But compression ratio always equals heat. Here's a good question. I'm out of room. I gotta start erasing. What will affect your compression ratio more? Your suction pressure or your head pressure?
Head pressure.
You guys are getting ready to learn again.
Suction.
Yep. Low pressure plus 15. I think I've set that up right. Head pressure plus 15. That's your compression ratio. What dictates head pressure?
Outdoor ambient.
Outdoor ambient on air-cooled stuff, right? Whatever the load is on that condenser, is all, we're talking air-to-air stuff right now, so it's gonna be outside air temperature. What dictates suction pressure? Load on the evaporator, so we're talking air-to-air stuff, it's gonna be the return conditions, temperature and humidity. So, but which one will affect your compression ratio more? It's always the suction pressure. Mathematically, if this number changes 5 or 10 psi, if your suction pressure drops 10 psi, compression ratio starts going up. Whereas if your head pressure, mathematically, if your head pressure starts going up 10 psi, it won't affect it near as much as that suction pressure did. So suction pressure really affects compression ratio. Suction pressure really affects compression ratio. We good?
Mm-hmm.
Suction pressure is going to affect your compression ratio. In the residential world, and for air-to-air package units and stuff, like 3.5 to 1, like 3 or 4 to 1 compression ratio. So if my suction pressure, let's go R22 or something. Let's say my suction pressure was 80. I add 15 to it for absolute pressure. So that's 95. My head pressure, let's say it was 300. I add 15 to it. I'm just throwing numbers out. That's 315. Now all I do is go 315 divided by 95. Man, that's almost 3 to 1, right? We could do the math. It's like 3.1 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
300 divided by 100 is 3. So we're about 3 to 1. And that's pretty typical on air-to-air stuff. But if suction pressure affects compression ratio so much, let's talk about what affects suction pressure. What can make your suction pressure start dropping? Or maybe it's designed to be low. What affects suction pressure?
Load.
The load, period, game over. That's it, the load. So if the load is like a classroom like this, and we're pulling in 72-degree air, 50% humidity, that's the load on that evaporator. What about a 40-degree box if you're gonna go do refrigeration stuff? If you got a 40-degree box, right, with a 10-degree evaporator TD, I'm running a 30-degree evaporator. So now instead of being at 80 PSI, whatever 30 degree is on that refrigerant, but it's gonna drop that suction pressure down. You guys see, if we go from 72 in here with this number, but then let's take that same unit and put it in a walk-in cooler. Now my suction pressure is hanging out at like 40 PSI. Add 15 to it, I got 55. My compression ratio just went from 3-to-1 to 6-to-1, nearly. It doubled my compression ratio from going from a 70-degree box to a 40-degree box. Doubled the compression ratio. Good? Compression ratio, game over. Oil temp. Everyone remember how to solve for oil temp?
Discharge pressure temperature plus 75.
Yeah, clamp on the discharge line. So it's not a pressure temperature. Plus you
Yeah, sorry, discharge temperature.
Yep. Clamped on the discharge line, add 75 to it. So straight.
Does it know over the 250 or 350?
270.
Yeah, so mineral oil, well, 300 is critical, 325 is breaking down, and you're gonna lose a compressor. So, I always say, like, if you have a discharge line of 200 degrees, like you can, like, you're flirting with danger, you're at 275. And the reason we add 75 to it is, that's how much it just gives you a good idea. And guys, it's a guessing game, but it's a pretty good guess. When you add 75 to the discharge line temperature, that'll give you a good indication of what the oil temperature is on the cylinder walls or in the scroll set or wherever it really matters on the bearings. That'll give you a really good idea of what the actual oil temperature is, where it matters. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's, all right. Oil temp, moving on. All right, let me give you guys a scenario here now. Let's see if y'all can figure this out. I'm gonna draw something y'all have never seen before. A refrigeration circuit.
Oh, no.
Have y'all ever seen a refrigeration circuit on a whiteboard?
Nope, first time.
About to blow your mind, boys.
Compressor.
Condenser. Metering device, TXV. I wouldn't pass Mr. King's class with this drawing, right? Doesn't he like to come in the bottom of the evaporator? I'm not that good of an artist, so I'm gonna do it like this.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it does look pretty good, don't it?
Yeah.
Who said yeah?
Me?
That's 10 lab points, thank you.
That actually looks beautiful.
Should I sign it? Damn good drawing. My signature on it.
Joe.
There's nobody in here named Joey. Not till you graduate.
That's the first thing I'm doing when I graduate, is calling you then.
Go for it. I actually prefer it. When you guys graduate, I actually prefer it. But it's whatever you want to do.
Say I never graduate, because I mean I can't call you.
Here's your scenario. I got several of these. I love doing these. I love doing these. Alright. Here's my low side gauge. Here's my suction line temperature clamped on.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's my high side gauge and my liquid line temperature clamped on. So let's start off. So just go straight for the headshot. Let's go for a tough one straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's your criteria. Here's what you need to know. The outdoor air temperature is 85. go old school, yeah. This is a R22 machine. Twanky twank. Let's say it's like a 5-ton package unit. If you want any more information, I'll tell you. Head pressure is exactly 199. And suction pressure is 48. What else do we need? Suction line temperature 73. And 96 on the liquid line. You want any more information? Let's convert these real quick. What's 48 converted?
24.
24 degree evaporator. Straight off the bat, y'all realize that's a red flag? Like we're below 32, so any humidity in the airstream is going to start sticking to that coil. We're going to start frosting. We're going to freeze up the coil. Red flag. What's 199 converted? 101. 101. So I'm condensing at 101 degrees. I'm evaporating at 24 degrees. Y'all want any more information?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Serial number?
What's the air temperature going across the evaporator?
Alright. I'm being kind of lazy because, man, it's a packaging, or no, my return air temperature in space is 78 degrees, and the complaint is it's running nonstop and it won't cool down. What else you want to know? Why? I'm gonna be really honest with you guys. I hardly ever take a temperature split, and so I go against the grain on a lot of people. If you guys did any PMs for a company and they were like, oh, don't even hook gauges up. If your temperature split, if your supply air, return air split is okay, don't even hook gauges up. I'm gonna call bullshit on every single person that brings that up. Like that's not. I don't roll that way ever, 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 ever. And if you look at just dry bulb only, man, you're doing this. Like, what about the latent load that's on that evaporator? Now, if you want to take some wet bulb temperatures and actually do some calculations, you might get away with that. Me personally, I hardly ever take temperature split. Hardly ever. Hardly ever. Every once in a while. But here you go. Here's my supply air temperature. You ready to make it blow your mind? It's got an 18-degree split. That's good. Sensible. What should your split be?
25.
15 like 20?
15 to 20 on temperature split, not evaporator TD, but temperature split. And I know everyone uses different terminology and everything, but I'm going to go temperature split and then evaporator TD. Temperature split is this, return air minus supply air. And it should be 15 to 20. It's got 18. You will see this all the time. This is why temperature split doesn't tell you a whole lot. So let's do our condenser TD and evaporator TD.
Are you going to tell you what's wrong with this unit, or?
Not yet. We're gonna step through it.
Okay.
You already got it?
I think so.
Who thinks they've already got it? Good. What should my condenser TD be?
25. 20 is a good number.
20? Maybe.
Where?
Anybody want to ask any questions about this machine?
What series?
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone want a service call? Me. 10 SEER. So now, what should my condenser TD be? 30. So condenser TD, it's high side converted, and outdoor air, right? And, guys, I do condenser TD and evaporator TD backwards. I already know the outdoor air walking up to this machine, or I take it right before I get there. So,
What's the amp draw on the compressor?
low,
Low?
yeah.
Okay.
FLA is 20. Actual is 11. 9, 10, 11, somewhere right there. I do condenser TD backwards. I don't do a subtraction problem. I do an addition problem. And it seems to work well for most people. I know it's 85 degrees outside. I know my condenser TD should be what? 30.
115.
So I should be condensing at 115, right? 30 above ambient. So I look at my high side gauge. Do I have 115 degrees?
No.
No, class. Like, so what can we say about our head pressure?
Low.
So I start checking this stuff off. I'm like, all right, I got low head pressure. Low head pressure. And I've already been inside. I've taken a reading, dry bulb only, just keeping it simple. Evaporator TD. What should my evaporator TD be? How many degrees should it be? 30?
30.
Indoor temperature of 78. We're not going to talk about the humidity or anything right now, which we need to, but we're just going to look at the dry bulb only. It's 78. Minus 30 is what?
48.
48. So as soon as I screw that low side gauge on this R22 machine, I'm looking for 48 degrees. What can you say about the suction pressure? Low. I needed 48 degrees roughly. We're not even just on the dry bulb only, but I needed 48 degrees. I got 24. So I got low suction pressure. Head pressure's down, suction pressure's down. Let's keep going. Let's find out, is my condenser normal, starved, or flooded? What do we use to determine if our condenser is normal, starved, or flooded?
Subcooling.
Subcooling, very good. And to solve for subcooling, I look at my high side gauge and I convert it, R22 machine, so I just look at the green numbers.
Negative.
I got 101. It condensed at 101, and then I subcooled it down to 96.
That's 5.
So I got 5 degrees of subcooling. What should I have, roughly?
8.
12 to, yeah. So what do you want to say about the subcooling?
Slow.
Yeah, low subcooling. And remember, over here, we've got the fuel gauge. Empty and full. Empty would be 0 degrees. Full would be like 20 degrees or something. I'm at 5 degrees.
So you're starving.
So I got a starved condenser. It's not crazy starved, but it's 5 degrees. We're looking for 10. So I have a starved condenser. Everybody agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, where's the refrigerant at? It's got to be here somewhere. So then I start looking at the evaporator. What's my superheat? Superheat's going to tell us the liquid level, right? Here's my fuel gauge. And remember, superheat is reverse acting. So empty is going to be over here. Full is going to be over here at 0. Empty, we'll just say 20 again.
40. Yeah, 40.
49.
That is definitely flooded.
49.
Golly, what is that, 49?
Yeah.
I got 49 degrees.
That dude done went around twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better find a gas station, right? Empty, starved.
Leak.
High superheat means high vapor, which means low liquid. So, class, if I have low head pressure, low suction pressure, starved condenser, starved evaporator. What's wrong with it? That's 1,000% undercharged.
I was just looking at this like,
Low, starved.
Low amps too.
Low amps. Everything about this screams undercharged. You guys see how we did it?
I
The little
agree.
fuel gauges, you like that? Thank you, Roger Shepherd. Mr. Shepherd taught me that when I was a student here.
he screwed on that gauge and
Everybody see how we did that?
Yeah.
Condenser is normal, like 0 is empty, a high number is full. Superheat on the evaporator is flip-flop. A high number is empty, a low number is full. It's reverse acting over here on the superheat on the evaporator side. Now y'all want a tougher one?
Yeah.
yes.
I love doing these. I got it. Yeah, alright. Here we go. I got some pretty tough ones. Me and Mr. Shepherd, you guys never, some of you guys, like Barry, you met Shepherd, but
Mr. Shepherd.
yeah, he was my capstone teacher, and he was actually my boss. He taught the classes that I teach, and then whenever he went to department head, like what Mr. Woodard is now, kinda, I took over his classes, but we went to a thermodynamics class one time with Greg Westerman at O'Connor Company in Tulsa. Anyone buy any train parts from O'Connor? He's retired now, I think, but Greg Westerman, probably a super sharp guy. But we went to this thermodynamics class that he put on, and he was doing something kind of similar to this. The dude burned us 3 times in a row. At least twice, but he burned us like 3 times in a row. Like, get you going where you're like, oh, this isn't bad. Then he was just like, uppercut. So I was like, I burned those in, so I still got them. I'll give you guys something similar to what he got us with, but not yet. Let's do one more. Alright, still R22, why not? Doesn't matter what the refrigerant is. You guys understand we don't care about pressure, we only care about temperature? Let's just keep it old school. This is an old package unit. Man, if you could get this package unit back online, you got the account. They want to keep this old girl going. You're going to replace 5 others up there, but they want to keep this one going for another year. So let's figure this one out real quick. Old R22, 25 ton, 10 sear.
There's a leak.
Guaranteed.
There's a bullet.
Now it's 95 degrees outside. This is a manufacturing plant. Like, if you can get this one unit going again, they can start the line back up. But right now they have no production going on. They're losing money. We gotta get this thing figured out. Alright. My head pressure is 270. My liquid line temperature is 108. Suction pressure is 58. And then my suction line temperature is 33 degrees. Return air is 80. We gotta get this thing cooled down so they can get back to work and start making money again. Plus we gotta rip 5 other units off the roof. We've gotta get this one fixed and cooling before we can start pulling the other ones off the roof. You guys like how I do the scenario here? Gotta get it figured out. Supply air is 60 because nobody cares.
So that's flooded.
Compressor amp.
Compressor amp draw. It's rated for 20. Pulling 18. Hey, if you have a compressor that's rated for 20 amps, when does it pull 20 amps? Startup it'll pull a locked rotor, it'll pull more than that.
105 degrees.
105 degrees.
Full load.
Under full load. which is usually like 105 degrees outside. And I'll be honest with you guys, some of these new compressors and stuff, especially if it's, you see all these 80 microfarad run caps and everything now, like they're expecting a lot out of the start winding, but especially on those units, I don't know if it ever pulls FLA. I told you guys about my sister's air conditioner that's kind of the guinea pig or whatever. Camera's going, so I won't talk about that too much, but I will tell you that while I was out there mixing refrigerants into that thing, that I block the condenser. I'm like, at what head pressure, at what condenser TD will this thing actually pull FLA? And it won't. It never did. It'll trip off on high head pressure. It'll trip off on 600, way up there. It'll start popping the IPR valve. It never pulls FLA. Just something to stick in your mind when you're out there doing those PMs. Stick it in your head. Take an amp draw. Stick it in your head. All right. You want any more information?
The pressures converted to temperatures?
Yeah, let's do that. 58.
32.
That's a 32 degree evaporator. Red flag. What is this? 122 degree condenser. Okay. Yeah.
Little higher.
I'm like 95, so it should be at 125. I'm at 122. Like, I'm okay with that personally. Head pressure is a tiny bit low, but no red flag. I'm not even gonna. I'll store that in the back of my head for a second. But that's not a huge red flag. That's a red flag. 32 degree evaporator. She's close to freezing. And so if my return air temperature drops a couple of degrees, now I'm definitely below freezing, and it's definitely going to start freezing up if it's not already. You get what I'm saying? The load on the evaporator starts dropping, and then the suction pressure is going to drop. Let's figure this one out, and I'll give you guys one. If you guys want one, I'll give you one to take home and play with. I may save it for class tomorrow, burn you guys with it.
So we got 30 filters?
Potentially.
On the evaporator?
Potentially. How's my condenser look, guys?
A lot of subcooling.
Does it? At 108 to 122.
It's like mid, it's like 14.
14 degrees of subcooling. It's got a little bit of extra subcooling, right?
That's good.
It's good to a little bit flooded. Like, still not a huge red flag, but like, I'd store it in the back of my head, kind of. So my head pressure is okay. My subcooling is okay / it's kind. I don't even want to say it's high, but it's a little bit, tiny bit high, maybe. That's what I'll say. High, maybe. Condenser's okay-ish. Agreed? Does anybody disagree with that? Condenser TD, okay-ish. Subcooling, okay-ish. But what about the evaporator side now? How's my suction pressure look? It looks bad?
Low.
Is it normal, low, or high?
Low.
I got low suction. How do you know that?
Because 32.
So we're looking for 50 and it's 32.
Thank you. 80 minus 30 is 50. I need a 50 degree evaporator. And I've got a 32 degree evaporator. So my suction pressure, there's a red flag. Low. Low suction. Now, what's my superheat look like?
1 degree.
1 degree? Yeah. So, superheat is low. Game over. I know what's wrong with it. Every time. Low suction and low superheat are always
Always?
Airflow.
airflow. Class, will this ever be the TXV?
No.
Never. Ever. I get this call at least 2 or 3 times a summer, like, run low suction, low superheat, I put a new TXV on it. It is never, tell me how a TXV could fail that would give us low suction and low superheat. If it sticks wide open, it'd have high suction and low superheat. If it's pinched closed, I'd have low suction, high superheat because it's starving the evaporator. A TXV, a faulty TXV will never, ever, ever be low suction, low superheat. Low suction, low superheat is always airflow. It's always airflow. I cannot stress this enough. Airflow, airflow, airflow. My God, airflow. Airflow. Airflow, boys. Which, if you look at the back of that paper, I gave you a cheat sheet for different duct sizes and stuff like that. We're going to run out of time, but real quickly, low airflow. Chet, what'd you say?
Dirty filter or condenser core.
Dirty filter
Evaporator.
or evaporator, yes sir.
Undersized ductwork.
Thank you. Have you guys ever seen any undersized ductwork? Like,
Yeah.
You're damn right.
No, everything's perfect.
I don't even mess with that work
Undersized filter grills, right? In the commercial world, a 20 by 20 filter grill fits perfectly in the ceiling grid. Everything gets a 20 by 20. A 20 by 20 filter grill is good for 2 tons, 800 CFM. So, if you have, a 20 by 20 is only good for 2 tons. Let's keep doing this real quick until we got a couple minutes. What else will be an airflow issue? Let's think commercial rooftop equipment.
Leaving a panel off the unit.
Huh?
Leaving a panel off the unit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That'll definitely do it.
Strip out screws.
Panels laying off, the blower just sucking in a bunch of air through here instead of actually pulling it through the evaporator. Every package unit that I know of, just about, the evaporator's in the return. Which also means you need a P-trap on your drain on every single package unit. Panels off, what else? What if it's squealing real bad? What are you going to be checking as soon as you take that panel off? Belt. Loose belt.
Oh, yeah.
Non-existent belt.
Non-existent belt, yeah. You can start getting deep, like if it's variable frequency driven, like maybe it's not ramping up to whatever speed it's supposed to. What is some more just common stuff though? We said lock fan motor. Yeah. Hey, let me hit you guys with this one. What about a fire damper that's tripped?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody run into that?
Yeah.
Who did? Yeah.
Apartment.
Fire damper closed. So in the commercial world, anytime you bust through a fire-rated wall, like this block wall, this wall is rated for at least 3 hours. So if we penetrate it, if we bust through with a duct, we have to put a fire damper in it. And usually we have them trip at like 160, 180 degrees. If that duct gets 180 degrees, it thinks there's a fire in here, and then it slams shut this accordion-looking thing, just a piece of sheet metal, so that the fire can't get out of this room and go start burning other rooms. And so that one will get you the first time. Burn that one in your head. Let me throw another one at you guys real quick. I know we're out of time. Gas furnaces. You take the doors off, and you're like, man, this thing's running fine or whatever, right? You look at it, you're like, I don't see any issue. Check the insulation in the blower compartment. The glue that they use sucks, right? Anybody run into this? Yeah, so luckily a bunch of y'all have already seen this. The insulation inside of a furnace, you take the doors off, it looks fine. Then you put the doors on and it starts sucking and it sucks the insulation up against the motor or the blower wheel or whatever, and it'll block the blower wheel. That one will burn you. Anyone get burned by that one yet? Yeah, that one will burn you because you take the doors off, like everything looks peachy in here. As soon as you start putting the doors on, you can't see anymore, and it sucks the insulation up against the blower, and it will burn you. What else? Fire damper, loose belt. What if it's a 3-phase blower motor that technician A just replaced yesterday? Wrong speed, we need to put that one up there. It needs to be on high speed. What if it's a 3-phase blower motor?
Polarity.
Yeah, running backwards, right? If the blower motor's running backwards, or if it's on the wrong speed, if it's a single phase, if it's variable frequency driven, maybe it's on the wrong speed. Undersized ductwork, undersized ductwork, undersized ductwork, undersized ductwork. That cheat sheet I gave you,
Undersized duct.
you can just look at the plenum and say, hey, it's got a 10-inch tap, an 8-inch tap, a 12-inch tap. And I would just burn these in my head, hopefully if I'm you guys. A 10-inch will move 1 ton. A 10-inch moves 400 CFM, roughly. Roughly. So 10-inch is 400. An 8-inch is exactly half of that. So how much air will an 8-inch move? 200 CFM, half a ton. So a 10-inch is 400. 8-inch is 200. 200, 400. 10-inch. What about a 12-inch? It's double. So it'd be 800.
Or are we?
And then, yeah, and then you can get into all the other stuff.
Is that for flex duct?
It's all about the static pressure, but for rules of thumb, like I would use that. We're out of time, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Or I'll see you guys this afternoon.
Is it okay if we run and get one?
We got 30 minutes, right? Or what do we got?
30. What are those little orange, little boxes that have damper?
Yeah, gross. Yeah, what?
It's like, they open and close the damper.
You're done with
There's
it.
two rooms that are being.
Oh, a zoning system or
Yeah.
Still in that one.
zone damper?
Actuator.
Yeah, you were doing commercial work, right? So, like a Belimo actuator?
We just have this little bitty training package unit, one of these offices, three offices. One lady's one of their offices, other people are on there. We had we got called 3 days in a row for that.
Really?
The first one failed, and then we put it back in, and they gave us the wrong part, and it was too short, so it
Yeah,
fell
please.
inside there and everything. It was just